Right, I think that's everyone joined now. Right, welcome and thank you everyone for joining us today for our update on changes to immunoglobulins in New Zealand. To guide us through these changes, we're very pleased to have with us Dr. Annette Neylon. My name is Sean Reeves, one of the support service coordinators for LBC, based here in Midlands. Now, before we start introducing Dr. Neylon in more detail, just a quick bit of housekeeping. You will note that everyone is on mute, but questions can be submitted through the Q&A button at the bottom menu of your screen, just down there. You can submit these at any time, and we will attempt to get them through by the end of the talk. This talk will be recorded and will be available via our YouTube channel. Now, to our speaker today, we touch on some of the quick highlights in her impressive career so far. Dr. Annette Neylon completed training in haematology in Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK in 2003, obtaining fellowships at both the Royal College of Physicians and the Royal College of Pathologists UK, as well as then completing an MD in the field of chronic myeloid leukemia. She worked as a specialist haematologist in the UK between 2003 and 2007 before moving to the Southern Blood and Cancer Service in Dunedin, Otago, New Zealand, as their clinical lead of haematology. She has acted as a principal investigator of several clinical research trials. In addition, since 2018, Annette has been a member of the RACP New Zealand Joint College Training Subcommittee for Haematology, helping promoting training in haematology in New Zealand. Annette accepted the role of New Zealand Counsellor for the Haematology Society of Australia and New Zealand in 2021. Since 2022, Annette has worked for the New Zealand Blood Service, combining haematology and transfusion medicine. She combines her knowledge of haematology in the clinics with transfusion to ensure the patient's benefit. Her main project currently is the rollout of the new haemoglobin products across New Zealand. However, when not working in that little bit of free time, Annette functions as a taxi driver, event organizer, sideline cheerleader for her son. So if I could just ask you now to welcome Annette into the room here in our virtual seminar, and I will hand it over to her to take you through our topic today.
Thank you, Sean. Oh, it's my pleasure to talk you through the changes that are going to happen with New Zealand's immunoglobulin products, so that you've got all the information that you need to help you support you through this change. Our current situation in New Zealand is probably something that you're already familiar with, but basically the New Zealand Blood Service has the goal of trying to maintain self-sufficiency in our blood products from a local volunteer donor base. But since the 1960s, CSL has been sent New Zealand plasma to their processing and fractionation plant. They fractionated into different products near Melbourne in Australia before shipping them back to New Zealand for our use in the hospitals. New Zealand Blood Service would actually like to aim only to use New Zealand sourced plasma in its products, but we're unable to achieve 100% yet. And so we have to top up with certain products that are sourced from elsewhere around the world. Our vein-to-vein philosophy ensures that we can track every donation through processing all the way to the individual patient who receives those products or part of those products. And we would like to ensure that all New Zealand patients and hospitals can receive this in an equitable manner. So where are we currently at with immunoglobulin use in New Zealand? Well, the existing product, which some of you may already be familiar with, Intragam back in 1988, was then redeveloped into Intragam P, which has been present for more than 20 years and so is a familiar old friend to New Zealanders. We have a subcutaneous product called Hizentra, which has become available in New Zealand since about 2011. and Immunoglobulin, which is our current subcutaneous product, since about 2013, although it was brought into the country earlier in the form of a clinical trial. Since 2009, we've had access to Privigen, which is a commercial Privigen, which is come into sort of routine supply since 2015. And for those that may have lived in Australia at different times, they may be familiar with a product called Intragam P, which has been in use in Australia since 2017. But actually, they've just transitioned to Privigen AU from earlier this year. This looks quite complicated, but basically is to demonstrate our current use of immunoglobulin between the years 2020 to 2021, where the predominant use was in, sorry, I'll just get my highlighter pen here. So a primary immunodeficiency was around about 22% of the total, and a neurological indication, CIDP, in 21% of the total use. And here, this is the more common, frequently administered on a regular basis, a haematological disorder, which was around about 13% of our plasma product usage. What this shows you that in 2020 to 2021, there are two main areas of age that seem to require immunoglobulin. Those in the very early newborn situation, and then we sort of tail off a little bit in the middle to a plateau level before rising again in older age for the amount of usage that we have. So we've looked at this project since the beginning of 2022. And in that sort of 18-month period, we've issued over 750,000 grams of Intragam. And currently we're sitting around about 50,000 grams per month. And this goes to a range just under 2,000 patients across New Zealand using both intravenous and subcutaneous products. But as you can see here, we now have nearly 300 people who are having immunoglobulin for the hematological acquired secondary hypogammaglobulinemia indication. So this is becoming increasingly frequent. Why is this change coming about? Well, I'm going to describe for you the process of changes, which was initiated by CSL Behring with their process migration. They've constructed a new base fractionation facility in Australia, just outside Melbourne. They receive our intermediate products, and this forms the basis of the final product. And that will be identical now in manufacture throughout the whole world. The only difference in the product will be the source of the plasma. So in our case, this will be New Zealand plasma. What would the benefits of this be? Well, they've built brand new state-of-the-art facilities. We can take advantage of their new developments in the process that they go through in terms of their global investment in research and development. And for every ton of plasma that we send to CSL, they're able to now obtain a higher yield of the final product than our current processing of the Intragam P. The commercial product, Privigen, will be identical in all ways except the source of the plasma. But that means if we do need to top up our supply, if we don't have it for a particular period of time, or we can't get enough from our own New Zealand donors, we can be assured that their product, Privigen, will be identical in all intents and purposes. I just wanted to run through for you how we go through the process of getting approval for a new product, just to show you how carefully regulated this process is within New Zealand. So companies who want to sell a new medicine for whatever purpose in New Zealand have to make an application to MedSafe, and they go through a new medicine application approval system. They have to include information that demonstrates that that medicine meets New Zealand and internationally recognised standards for quality, safety and efficacy. And then MedSafe reviews the information that's submitted and makes a recommendation on whether this should be approved or whether it should be approved in certain circumstances only. And then if that medicine is approved, the New Zealand sponsor company then decides if that medicine will be supplied to New Zealand. So how safe, how do we establish that safety? Well, the pharmaceutical company, in this case CSL, are responsible for that medicine and providing MedSafe with all of the safety information, which might be from clinical studies, but it might come from elsewhere around the world, from data that they have from other countries. MedSafe evaluates this, decides if that safety profile is acceptable, and reviews the risks and benefits before approving it. So this is the process that we've gone through with our new product of Immunoglobulin. We started this process more than a year ago. It went through a priority assessment submission and goes through what we call a MedSafe approval, so it is gazetted. And this happened around about March of this year. And once that's been approved, then they can start pooling our new product within their new facility. And we eventually obtain the supply of it. So this is a longer term outlook for where we're up to now. And this is a copy of our gazette showing that we're approved from March to supply this product. So just to introduce for you Privigen New Zealand, it will be our primary immunoglobulin product from the 15th of August this year. This is what it will look like. Each of these bottles, so whether it's 5 in 50 grams, 10 in 100 mils, or 20 grams in 200 mils, they're all 10% solutions. And that makes it a lot easier for our calculations. Those that are familiar with Intragam P, it's old imperial measurements and not decimalization, which makes calculations slightly more difficult. And this is quite a busy slide, but the key messages here are these 4 things. It's a higher concentration than Intragam P, which was a 6%. We're now looking at 10% concentration. And what that means is less volume to infuse to get the same amount of product in. The other thing that's important, this thing called an excipient or a stabilizer, Intragam P used it as sugar, which is called maltose, and I'll come on to describe why that's important a bit later. Whereas our new product Privigen NZ uses this thing called L-proline. You can see that we have a longer shelf life with our new product, and as a matter of ease for us, we no longer have to store it in refrigerated storage, which is quite difficult to maintain. We can store it at room temperature. And you'll also notice that the infusion rates are somewhat different. So that might make a difference to the amount of time that it takes you to receive this full dose of your immunoglobulin product. We obviously need to have some alternative for those people who are unable to tolerate Privigen New Zealand or who we have already documented an allergy in. So we have an alternative product called Gamunex 10%. And again, for ease, we've gone with a 10% concentration. It comes in 1 bottle size, which is 100 mils containing 10 grams. And this has a different form of stabilizer, which again, I shall explain why that's important. It's got a longer shelf life than our current product, but it does have to be stored in the fridge. And again, the infusion rate may well be slightly different to what you're currently receiving your immunoglobulin infusion as. So this has now arrived in the country. Hizentra New Zealand, I just mentioned to you, this will be our primary subcutaneous product from the 17th of October. It is a subcutaneous product which has slightly more use or indications for use within New Zealand. So maybe something that you hear about at a later date, but I'm not going to focus on the subcutaneous products today. So just to go through why an immunoglobulin stabilizer is important. This, again, it's quite busy, but it's just to explain to you that stabilizers are important for stopping the immunoglobulin from sticking together and congealing in the bottle. So it's important that they have a stabilizer, but what we do know is that they can play an important part and result in clinical problems for people, particularly if they had renal problems or diabetes or allergies. So our new stabilizers, instead of using maltose, which is a sugar, and that can certainly interfere with things like diabetic monitoring, these use amino acids, and these are naturally occurring substances within the body. So there is less likelihood to have a reaction to these. And that we know that they have a very good track record in resulting in fewer adverse events. So all of our new products will be using amino acid stabilizers. And this just indicates here, you know, with this particular stabilizer, there's no particular concerns. With the proline one, this is perhaps only of importance to very, very tiny babies in particular. So that's the reason that we've chosen our current product, to minimize the effects or the potential effects. So I just want to talk you through how we've approached this transition to make sure that you understand how we're keeping people informed, both yourselves as patients, but also your healthcare professionals and the team that look after you. So our first step was to identify anyone who'd previously had a reaction to Privigen so that we could offer them an alternative, such as our Gamunex 10% from the very start. And we've actually only identified a very small number of patients who will require this, although we've got plentiful supply if we were to need any more. We've reviewed somewhere in the order of 2,000 case files to ensure that we get the right products for people, and then classified them. And to be on the safe side, we have actually reclassified and verified that classification to make sure we're absolutely right. We may have contacted the individual patient's healthcare clinician to check with them as well for any additional details that we might need. And then subsequently, we've sent a letter to the prescribing clinician, the clinical nurse specialist, and the blood bank for each individual patient so that we can notify them, and this could be recorded in their records. And that's to ensure that the right dose of the right product is available on the transition day for each patient. So where are we up to at the moment? Well, here we are in July. Our Privigen New Zealand has arrived this week, so cause for celebration for us. It will be distributed, and our pilot site is in the southern region of New Zealand, and that will commence around about the 25th of July. But Privigen New Zealand will become available to all new patients in New Zealand from the 15th of August. At that point, on the 15th of August, the rest of the South Island will start to transition, and that will subsequently be followed 2 weeks later by Waikato region. Following that, 2 weeks later in Central, there will be a transition followed by the Northern region and the 26th of September. And somewhere around that time, our subcutaneous product will be arriving in New Zealand, which we will then subsequently start to transition from October. Obviously, we still will have some stock of Intragam P and our subcutaneous product Privigen, and we don't want to be wasteful, so we are aiming to use this stock up rather than dispose of it. We've communicated all the way back from June last year, making people and transfusion, blood banks, clinicians, patient advocacy groups like leukemia and blood cancer aware that there will be coming changes to our product line. And then a formal notification process has gone through, keeping people up to date with how we're getting on, what our expectations are of the change, and making sure that everybody's on board with that. What do we require? Well, ideally, we want to have revised immunoglobulin approval documented. There's a new consent form that you may be asked to consider signing, and an updated prescription from your clinician to ensure that the right product's available for you on that day. What we have put in place, because we realise that change can be slightly uncertain. So New Zealand Blood Service has gone through a design process of a whole suite of information to help support you through this change, so that we acknowledge that this can make you feel uncertain, but giving you the information means that we hope to reduce that feeling of uncertainty. So we have a number of resources that are available to you. They will look something along these lines. There's an informed consent leaflet that you will be looking at before signing consent. Hopefully that will answer the majority of your questions. There'll be product changes, frequently asked questions, and then some notifications, and you might see posters around the place. Obviously, like myself, I'm sure during COVID, you've become far more familiar with QR codes. And what we have done here is put QR codes on all of our information so that if you scan them with your phone, they'll take you directly to the Immunoglobulin site on our New Zealand Blood Service website. So you can access this information for yourself. It will take you to this hub, which will look something along these lines here. The information will be on New Zealand Blood. The link is here for you, but we're also providing electronic copies of this. We'll make sure that leukemia and blood cancer will have paper copies that you can obtain as well. And there's also some additional links to things like the consumer medicine information. Over here, there is this button called an audio button. And what that means is that it will speak out loud the whole of our booklets for those people who have poor vision, or even in 30 or more languages if English is not your first language. What you would do is click on this patient button at the top here, which will take you through to the information leaflets here. So each one of these leaflets, by clicking on it, will take you through to our full product. And if you're anything like me, you can read this in size 70 font without your glasses on the computer screen if you find that easier than a printed leaflet. We've also put in place a leaflet that covers any frequently asked questions that we think you might need to know about. So I'm just going to run through that with you, but know that you can link to it on our website as well. So a lot of people say, well, why am I being asked to change? I'm happy with the one that I've got. And there could be lots of reasons that you're asked to change. In the future, it might well be that you don't tolerate one particular type of product, and so transitioning to a different one might alleviate some of those potential side effects. Or how that immunoglobulin product is administered might change. It may be with our new subcutaneous products that you feel it might be more suitable for you, either better for you because of the distance that you travel or because of the lifestyle, that you might wish to discuss with your lead clinician about whether a subcutaneous product would be better for you. It might well be that this choice is made because that product is ceased by the manufacturer. And so it's not that we can continue to obtain the same product and we have to transition to a new product. It also might be that we don't have enough supply of our own and that we have to top it up with a commercial product. And we want to ensure that you're aware of that. Or it could be we have made the choice that it's simpler for each of the smaller blood banks around New Zealand that they might only be able to hold one particular type of product. So it could be that if you move regions from a very large location like Auckland, for example, to a far more rural one, that they may just have the one product that could be Privigen NZ that everybody that would then receive. Are all immunoglobulin products the same? Well, as I've demonstrated, actually the immunoglobulin content might well be the same. This is what actually fights infections and diseases and plays an important part in regulating the immune system. But what is different in these products might be the concentration. In other words, how strong that solution might be. And therefore, the total volume that you might need to receive could be less. As I've talked about before, it could be that there is certain excipient or stabilizer in that product that doesn't suit you, and therefore we might need to switch to a different one to alleviate any possible side effects from that. But obviously, your doctor will be involved in choosing the right product for you. What possible side effects might I experience? Well, I think the important thing to remember is that you might already experience some side effects that you've gotten used to because you've had that same product, Intragam P, for more than 20 years. And so you don't necessarily mention those side effects to your healthcare professional. But obviously, when you start a new product, we want you to be mindful of what to look out for and to report those to make sure that we're aware of what's happening when people are receiving these new products. It may be that you have headache, tiredness, body aches. They may be more likely to happen in the first few treatments, but they usually do get better over time. Or there are means that we have to try and alleviate some of those symptoms. What you can do is obviously ensure that you're well hydrated before receiving the infusion, and that can sometimes help to lessen or avoid those side effects. Very rarely there could be some serious side effects, but what we have found with this new product is that these things are somewhat less likely to occur. What we do know is that the side effects from the product switching is really quite uncommon, but it is really important to tell your healthcare team if you are experiencing any of those, because we could make an adjustment to help with you. Is changing the immunoglobulin product compulsory? What choice do you have? Well, it really depends on the reason that you are changing that product. If it's due to a side effect, then it will be discussed with you why it might be a benefit to change to a different one for a better option. But if it's because that product is no longer available, like Intragam P will be no longer available, then we have to look at what alternatives we have. And what can you do to help make things go smoother? Well, several things. The important thing is keeping, regularly in touch with the healthcare team that are looking after you and telling them if there's any changes since you last received the treatment. Some people might consider keeping a treatment diary so that you keep a record of whether you have any reactions, whether it could be good or bad when you change the products, but noting any changes that you experience so you can discuss them with your healthcare team. And an awareness of what possible side effects you might have so that you do know whether to mention them, but also having your phone number of the healthcare team looking after you to hand so that you know who to contact if you have any problems. prior to you receiving the very first infusion with the new product, you'll have the opportunity to talk this through with your healthcare team, and you might have a few questions, some of which are here. You know, is it going to make a difference to how long I will have that first infusion and then subsequent infusions? What we have said is it's probably prudent to go slower with the first infusion to make sure that you tolerate it well. But subsequently, it may well be that the infusion time is actually quicker than what you're currently receiving once you've got up to the full speed. What other monitoring you might need to have, talk about what possible side effects you might experience, and whether the frequency of the treatment might differ. And then obviously we can talk through with the professional that's looking after you if you need any changes. It is, as I've said before, a good time to mention whether you're currently having any product side effects that you haven't mentioned for some time, so that we know that you were already having those on Intragam P before the change as well. So from now on, it's important to make sure that your team's aware of that if it's already happening. And obviously, if you normally would self-administer immunoglobulin products at home, with this, we're talking mainly the subcutaneous ones, then it might well be that they request that you go into the hospital to receive the first infusion, just to be on the safe side. And just to help you further, you can either look at our website, which is nzblood.co.nz patients, or you can scan our QR codes on any of our leaflets to take you to the right place to ask for those or get those answers to those questions. And I just want to reassure you that New Zealand Blood Service has obviously kept your healthcare professional team well informed during this process as well. And we've made available to them all sorts of cards and identifiers that they know they can easily reference when they're starting infusion with these new products as well. So that's probably enough of me describing what we're doing. I'm happy to take your questions and hopefully answer those now.
As just a reminder that there is a Q&A button just at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to put some questions in there. There's a few, but I just thought I would check if I was paying attention, Dr. Neylon, if I may. So I heard really it's the dose that's really changing, which might affect my time that I'm on the infusion, but this has all been communicated to my doctors, and there will be quite a slow, careful approach that will be taken. And really, it's not making any change to my clinical benefit. Did I hear that correct?
Absolutely. So what we hope with this product is that the benefit that you receive is as good, if not better, than your existing product. The timing, because it is more concentrated, we are cautious with the first couple of infusions. So we have suggested that the first time you receive this product, we're sure that you're tolerating it well, that infusion may take a bit longer than you would normally experience. But we've also looked at what would happen, say, 3 or 4 infusions later when you're up to full speed. And actually, the majority of people will have their infusions quicker because it is a more concentrated product. The dose that you receive in terms of grams of immunoglobulin will be almost the same.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neylon. And I'm guessing, although we had a lot of brilliant information, I think you took it through very nicely and slowly. I'm not going to remember all of it. So I've written down that your first place is to go to the New Zealand Blood Service website. Yes. And you've got brochures, you've got audio files there. There's over 30 plus languages that have been translated. And then, of course, people can come to us, talk to their support services coordinator, and we can redirect them or even provide some copies if we have them on hand. Is that best way to get information?
Yes, I think so. The other, the hard copies, the pamphlets, all of those things are available and been sent out already to the majority of the healthcare teams. So in the place where you go to receive your immunoglobulin infusion, they may well already have some copies available to you.
And the last one that I just saw in here as well is that you've already anticipated there might be those moments where people can't take things, and there's already another option that will be there as a backup option or as an alternative. And I did hear something about the sugar as well, that this one doesn't have any sugar, so that was better in a number of ways, but I can't recall exactly what you were saying there.
Yeah, so the stabilizer in Intragam P is a sugar called maltose. It tends in some places to interfere not necessarily with your own blood sugar in your body, but with the way that the monitors test your blood sugar when you do the finger prick test. And so it might sometimes give you a false reading. So our new products are using amino acids, which do not have any of those potential problems. They're also, if anything, a little bit easier on your kidneys. So that means that those people where before it was somewhat caution because of poor kidney function, that's less of an issue with those. And some people were allergic to certain of the maltose chain, and that could people with things like corn allergies and stuff like that will have potential problems, whereas we would not anticipate any of that with our current product, with our new products.
Thank you. Just if people are still there, I can see that there is well over 30 people on the line, and there's probably a lot of questions maybe bubbling. If you've got a moment to pop them in now, that's great, and we'll try and get to them. But if not, please do send them to us through your support service coordinator in your region, and we can reach out to Dr. Neylon to get some of those clarified. So just a couple more seconds there. Any more? Yes, I see someone. The lucky last is, this person has asked, if I have CLL and as of yet not needed any treatment, what treatment will I receive first? I react very badly to a lot of medications. I am frightened of the medication for CLL.
Right, and I understand that it can be a really anxious time to start off on treatment. I think if you're going to start an immunoglobulin product for your immune system, then our new products, Privigen NZ, is probably the best product available in the world. My experience with it in the commercial setting has been very well documented. It's been used for many years already. So even though it comes as a new product to New Zealand, the commercial product, which will be identical in every other way, apart from the source of the donor, of the plasma donation, has shown that people tolerate it really well. So I'm personally very encouraged that this is a good product to use and will undoubtedly be really beneficial to lots of people.
That's wonderful. And I think that was a great question just to wrap up on. I want to thank you very much once again, Dr. Neylon, for taking the time to run through with this. As I said a few times, you can check out New Zealand Blood Service website or contact us directly at LBC. Thank you for attending, and this will be up on YouTube very shortly for you to be able to peruse at your pleasure. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening.